Polska Credit Union Świętego Stanisława i Świętego Kazimierza oferuje nowy serwis finansowy. Błyskawiczne przesyłki pieniędzy do Polski i innych krajów świata za pośrednictwem firmy Western Union. Pieniądze wysyłane w oddziale Credit Union można odebrać tego samego dnia, a nawet już w kilka minut po wysłaniu w wybranym punkcie agencyjnym Western Union w Polsce. Wypłata w dolarach lub złotówkach na życzenie klienta. Zapraszamy do polskiej Credit Union. Informacje w oddziałach lub w call center.
Chcesz uwolnić się od myśli? Spakuj i wyślij.
Każda przesyłka z piastem idzie szybko. Szybciej. I najszybciej. W ciągu 4 dni do rąk odbiorcy.
Polimek jedzie. Polimek leci. Polimek spłynie. I doręcza paczki rodzinie. Hurra!
Zapraszamy Państwa do obejrzenia drugiej części fragmentów filmu dokumentalnego pod tytułem Lest We Forget – For Your Freedom and Ours, zrealizowanego przez studentów St. John's College w Brantford pod kierunkiem prowadzącego dział multimedialny uczelni Sławomira Dobrowolskiego. Narratorem filmu, jak i prowadzącym rozmowy jest Zygmunt Misiak. Dzięki sponsorstwu koła nr 4 SPK kopie DVD otrzymały wszystkie szkoły w Brantford i okolicy, dzięki czemu około 25 000 studentów może zapoznać się z historią Polski okresu wojennego oraz udziału żołnierzy polskich w bitwach na wielu frontach II wojny światowej. Zainteresowani dalszymi szczegółami na temat filmu lub jego nabyciem znajdą informacje na podanej stronie internetowej.
There was very many families in one. They put us like a sardines. And there was no food. Whatever we took with us, we have to do it. Whenever they stop on the stations, they gave us a little bit hot water. Only one person could come out from a train and get the water, hot water, and that's how they gave it to us. There was no washrooms. Washrooms, if the people was a little bit smart, they'd make the hole in the floors, and that was the washroom. If you didn't do that, you have to come out from the wagon, and the soldier was watching you when you was doing your business. That was going for 3 weeks. Short of food, people getting sick, people was very sick. People didn't know where they're going, and they was terrified. Then, after so many weeks, they took us to barracks in Russia, in Siberia. The parents was working in a wooden factory, and the children start to go to school, Russian school. In that time, they asked if there is a God. Children, of course, we are Polish people, most of us are Catholics. So from the youngest one, of course, there is a God. So they put us to the cellar, no windows, one door, and they, after a couple hours, they asked us, do you believe in God? When the children said yes, well, if you believe in God, let the God take you out. If you don't, well, they shut it off, shut the door, and still the children were staying there. After a couple hours, they asked again, and some of the children was terrified, and they said, there is no God. So they let them out. Whichever they didn't say, we don't believe in God, they were still staying there. Then the parents find out about was happening, they came and they begging them to let the children out. They did let the children out. So the parents later didn't let the children to go to school anymore because they was afraid what's going to happen to those children. When the amnesty came in 1942, they let Stalin and Sikorski, they arranged for the Polish people, 2 million people, they let them out from Russia. So we went down south to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and my father joined the army. There was forming the second corps, and my father joined the army. I was with my sister and my mother. My sister was very sick, so mother gave her to our orphanage, to the hospital, because it was better care of her. And we didn't have no place to go because they didn't want to take us, no place. So getting the food, my mother used to go to the mountains and get the turtles, catch the turtles, and from the turtles we had a meat and eggs. That's how we survived. They let us go to closer to Caspian Sea. From the Caspian Sea we went to Africa. In Africa I was Masindi, Uganda, and we had 100% better over there because there was food. We get to Canada in 1949. We came to her father because his sister, Sofia Pokui, she bring us over. And we had very, very good in Canada. We started from nothing, but we were appreciate that we came to Canada. That was the best place that we can remember. I can remember.
Frank Vidovchik. He was a young child, the brother of Richard, and remembers living in African camps.
Out of there in that horrible trip out to Siberia.
No, I don't believe so, because any memories I might think I have, it's from the tales or stories. So because you got to remember, I wasn't quite 2 years old.
Yeah.
I was about 18 months. So.
And yet the important thing is that the Frank that we're seeing here right now, I mean, the smaller person, I mean, you were there.
Smaller and younger Polish children evacuated from Russia were sent to several refugee camps outside Palestine. The largest group went to Africa, where Great Britain had granted them hospitality in her colonies. Smaller groups went to India, Mexico, and New Zealand. Most stayed in these camps up to 5 years.
Yeah. And like I said, eventually they were, Poles built a church right away, and so we got quite a progressive settlement.
And your mom, what did your mom and dad? Now they had to work to provide something like what did?
In Africa nobody worked.
No,
except maybe people in like hospitals, so we went out exploring into jungles and stuff like that. So go to the native village, and the villages. And
Ways Victoria Lake, and one side was jungle.
Yeah.
And fence. You couldn't go out from the camp. I'm blessed. I'm in this country and have a good life since I come to Canada.
1948.
Yeah, I believe we left for England in 1948.
Really? So you just go on with your life.
Right.
You hold it inside you.
Yeah.
And you look at that and say,
thank God I'm alive and I have good life now here.
Yeah.
And I guess that God hear our prayer.
Yeah.
So give us a good country to live in.
As France succumbed to the German onslaught, representatives of the Polish armed forces contacted the British government. Soon, on June 18, 1940, General Sikorski met with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and easily reached a settlement regarding the evacuation of the Polish armed forces from France to the British Isles. The Royal Navy dispatched a special unit to accomplish this to the Bay of Biscay, opening a new chapter in the annals of the Polish forces. When the Battle of France had finished, the Polish armed forces did not surrender on French land. Instead, they crossed into Switzerland, either traveling to Palestine or finding the way to Great Britain. 4 years later, they returned to France as part of the British and Canadian forces fighting in the Normandy invasion. It is not often, however, that we realize there are over 10,000 men in the Polish Air Force in this country. There is one squadron, number 303, whose exploits have long been the admiration of all Poles and Allied forces. They have destroyed more German planes than any other individual squadron. They are typical Poles. Courage and cheerfulness are their predominant characteristics, together with the passionate love of their country and an undying hatred of their enemy. Bill Minery, born July 2nd, 1925. He was a Royal Navy gunner on merchant marine ships, was in the 1943 Battle of the Atlantic at age 18, and saw action after D-Day in the Pacific. He has high praises for Polish soldiers.
I'll always remember my dad the night before I went. He said, "I wish I could go for you, son." And I thought, "You silly old duffer, what do you mean you wish you could go for me?" What he meant was, he'd been there. He knew what I was going to have to face. And I didn't know. Just went into it blind. But he, as an ex-serviceman, knew what I was going to have to face, and that was why he said that.
Plus the doggone ocean, the Atlantic, is not a very friendly place.
No,
anyway.
anything but. And I was actually, there was a ship ahead of me, ahead of us on, and it was a cargo ship loaded with iron ore to make metal with. Mm-hmm. Being transported to Britain. I was looking at this ship, and I'd see it every now and again. When I went down, that ship was coming up, you know, with the swell. And I seen it go down. When I came up, I couldn't see the ship. It had gone.
You know, some reading in that too is the Polish pilots were determined to get in and get up there and stop as many. So is that your sense of what is your sort of memory of that and the Polish involvement in the RAF as pilots?
Well, they were regarded by all servicemen as being some of the finest pilots in the world. They were also regarded by the same servicemen as being the craziest guys you could possibly meet. And they were.
Yeah.
They were like, some of them joined the airborne.
Josephine Soroka, one of very few females left who had participated and seen the war firsthand.
You were in the Air Force there, the Polish pilots, during what they call the Battle of Britain. The Polish pilots flew a lot of the Spitfires and the Hurricanes. Did you meet some Polish pilots when you were there?
Sure,
Yeah.
Jan Sławek, born August 31, 1923, also a victim of Russian expulsion with his family to Siberia early in 1940. After many months of isolation, he, along with 2,000 other Poles, crossed the Urals, escaping to Persia, there boarding a ship for relocation, eventually finding himself in England in 1942. At the age of 18, he trained as a Spitfire pilot in the RAF Polish section. Achieving the rank of sergeant, he moved on to the well-known Lancaster bombers.
This one we had, there was about 15,000 strong. We lost quite a lot of pilots with the Battle of Britain. We lost quite a lot of bombed these fellows that flying with bombers, and at the same time see what's happening going over the in Germany. Is not so easy. It's because the fighters, German fighters, just met them there. And
what was the relationship like between the British pilots and the Polish pilots during the war?
We didn't fight. We didn't, so I think it's we use the same methods, the same places, the same. There's no difference actually. During the Battle of Britain, there was all the ladies and so on, and we have friends, and English people were very good. Next day, all the soldiers were crying when they heard in the morning that in Gibraltar there was plane carrying Sikorsky crashed. And Sikorsky and all the staff, everything except the pilot, died. And that was a real shock to everything going around us.
Scott Clare, son of a World War II veteran. His father was a doctor in World War II. He was caught during 1942 in the Dieppe disaster and spent remaining wartime in German prison camps. Scott is an associate Polish combatant in the RCAF Branch 447 Associate, Brent Monuments Committee President.
Schooling and everything, I would guess. Would he have been then?
Well, he was 25 when he was caught at Dieppe, so he was older than most of the average troops, so they considered him an old man at that time. That was a test run for a waterborne, an amphibious invasion, well, not an invasion, but a raid. It was to test the German defenses, they picked a port, and it was just to see, it was supposed to be an in and out, quick, take some information, gather some prisoners. There were some radar sites that they wanted information on, but it was to test basically how a small invasion force could go in and then hit them and then come out. And of course, anybody who knows their history of World War II will realize that it was a total disaster. A lot of, and I'm not going to spend time on this tape to go over that, but it was a very unfortunate turn of events, and for the Canadians and the few British troops and 50 Americans. There were 50 American Rangers who went on this, and most people. Most Americans and very few Canadians even know this. So, but there's a plaque on the beach at Dieppe to the 50 Rangers. I think 3 of them were killed in action. There's a famous photograph of my dad's a landing craft that served as his first aid station. He took shelter behind that from bullets and bombs. And the Germans, after everything died down, took pictures on the beach, and DVA used one as a poster for Remembrance Day a couple of years ago, and it shows two soldiers, and the Germans at least had the decency to go and cover their faces with their helmets, but the body furthest, there's 2, so the one closest to the burning landing craft, which is my dad's first aid post, has American gaiters on, so that we confirmed that was an American soldier and lying next to a Canadian soldier.
So your dad was captured
on the beach.
On the beaches, and so would that mean that he spent the rest of his time in
prison camp?
In prison.